We're with Angie Craig. Congratulations. So what's your first reaction to today?
Well, this is just the start. I mean, Mike, what we've got is energy like I've never seen before. We had almost every delegate show up in a blizzard to come to a congressional district convention. So we know people are looking to change the course of this country, and I'm so excited to receive the DFL endorsement today.
Your opponent here, Jeff Erdman, what do you want to say about him?
Well, I will tell you that anyone who runs for Congress has my utmost respect. Jeff is actually a teacher at my youngest son's high school, Go Irish. And look, we ran a strong race. I think he made me a stronger candidate for Jason Lewis, and I'm looking forward to taking on Jason here in November.
Tell me what's going to be different about 2018 than 2016 in your race against Jason Lewis. Are you changing any of your strategy, tactics, message? What's going to be different?
Well, I'll tell you the first thing that's different is there's energy like I've never, ever seen it here in, a decade or two. We've already had 550 brand new volunteers. I told the story earlier today of I've got people who are volunteering for my campaign who are Republican women, and their husbands think they're going to book club to come volunteer for us. So we've never seen anything like this. It's the suburbs are really, just as we saw in New Jersey and Virginia, primed to say we want people in Washington who are going to work for our families. And that's me. I mean, I'm going to focus on two things. One is our values, what we believe in. That's good jobs and the job skills to do to build a middle class in this country. It's how do we make health care more affordable and more accessible to people. And it's how do we invest in public education in this country again. And I'm really fired up. I'm ready to go, and I think we're going to get this done.
Now, last campaign, there weren't debates until we got to the last couple of weeks of the campaign. Are you anticipating that's going to be the same thing, or are you and Jason Lewis ready to meet right away?
Well, Jason has been in Congress for over a year, and he still hasn't even met with his constituents, so I doubt he's going to want to meet with me. Sure, I'm ready to go. Where is he? So my constituents are asking the same thing. Over a year in this Congress, he has yet to have a single public meeting. That's not representation. You need to represent everyone if you're a member of Congress. You need to reach out and listen to people who maybe don't always agree with you, and that's the kind of member of Congress I'm going to be.
Let's quickly talk about a couple national issues. Syria. Donald Trump ordered that we started bombing Syria. What's your reaction? What's going on there?
Well, to be honest with you, I mean the events themselves were just atrocious. The chemical weapons that the Assad regime used are completely inappropriate. I was glad to see at least that he's reaching out to other countries as well. But at the end of the day, Congress has the authorization to war in this country. And so I think he needs to come to the Congress, and he needs to lay out what the plan is in Syria, not just a one strike and done, but what is your long-term strategic, and he needs to get authorization from the Congress.
Democrats, maybe not a majority of Democrats, but many Democrats are talking about if 2018 a flip Congress that maybe Donald Trump should be impeached. What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's a premature conversation. I mean, there is an ongoing investigation, and I want to see what the results of the investigation are. I think we need to get to where we get to with the information. This is too important. This is our democracy we're talking about here. This is American democracy. We need to know the results of the Mueller investigation, and then we need to see where that leads us.
The demeanor of the president, the way he's been carrying himself, has been offensive to a lot of people. Do you put yourself in that category?
Well, I'm not going to comment on the president. Every morning we get up and we find out what else he's tweeted. And look, if this president wants to work with Democrats on, putting together a Clean Dream Act or on infrastructure investments, on making health care more affordable, I'd be happy to sit down and work with him and any other Republican. But right now, I'm focused on what are the right things for the working families of Minnesota, too.
Final questions. Bill may have some too here, but just with this race, the top of the ticket is you're top heavy this year with 2 Senate races. You've got a gubernatorial race. Any thoughts on any of those races, including Tim Pawlenty jumping in for the Republicans right now?
Well, all I'll say is I'm focused on one thing and one thing only, and that's my race here in CD2. What I will tell you is it feels really good to have a little help with turnout this year in Minnesota, with the 2 Senate races and with the open governor's seat. Remember, 2016, it was awfully lonely. Well, all I had above me was a presidential ballot, and there wasn't a lot of organizing that went on in Minnesota. So I'm really happy to see a crowded race and an energized energized group of progressives around the country, and I believe independents are ready to say we want to change in direction of the country.
Bill, did you want to shout anything?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just let me follow up on what Mike is
Sure.
asking. The big difference is energy.
Yeah.
What's different in you? What are you doing different this time?
Well, look, the people of Minnesota are focused on kitchen table issues, and I think that's where Democrats, have lost their way in the past. We've got to make sure we have good jobs and the job skills that are going to put people to work and are going to give them more wages in the future. We've got to make sure that we're investing in public education and lowering the cost of higher education. We've got to make sure that we are focused on health care. I mean, every American should have access to quality health care in this country, and instead Republicans have made health care more unaffordable for Minnesotans. And so I'm going to be focused on not just access, but how do we bring down the cost of health care in this country. I'm going to be open to a lot of ways of doing it, but I said earlier today I had responsibility when I was at St. Jude for the U.S. healthcare plan. I've administered the plan. I've seen the cost of pharmaceutical drugs going up inside a plan. I had responsibility for implementing healthcare in Canada, in the UK, in Germany, and many other countries. So I believe I have the experience and the expertise to help us find where we move forward and make healthcare more affordable to Minnesotans.
One of the things that has changed is the atmosphere nationally, and how is that going to affect CD2?
Well, look, we're seeing a lot of the same key trends that we saw in New Jersey and Virginia already. 550 brand new volunteers this cycle to my campaign. People who've
2016.
Brand new from 2016. We had 2,000 people volunteer in 2016. We've already had 550 people who've never volunteered before show up, and not just sign up, but show up and do at least an hour of volunteer work for our campaign. I've shown up, like today, in a blizzard to a congressional district convention, and almost every delegate showed up, and most of the alternates turn up. I've turned up to the first half of a Vikings game in a blizzard this cycle, and 60 people are there waiting to talk about how we're going to make sure that Jason Lewis is a one-term congressman. Jason has been exactly who we thought he would be, right? I mean, he voted for the tax bill, recognizing that this district has a large proportion of its voters, of its constituents, who take that state and local tax deduction. To cap that at $10,000 is going to hurt a lot of people in this district. And it was all, this is the sad part, it was all to give a tax break to big corporations who did not need a tax break. And I'm going to call him out on that. He voted for both of those health care bills they put forward. And in doing so, we've taken away health care from more people. And as part of the tax bill, the individual mandate, removing that, it's going to increase healthcare costs in Minnesota next year. So Jason is not representing the people of this district well if he's not fighting to make sure that every penny stays in their pocketbook they can.
In your speech to the convention, you made reference to $10 million in outside money. Where did that figure come from?
Well, we are hearing numbers of a lot of outside money being spent in this race. That would be consistent with races we've seen up in the 8th Congressional District. Republicans know he is the second most vulnerable Republican, supposedly, in the Congress right now. This is a top 10 race this cycle, according to the Washington Post, top 10 House race. And we know there's a lot of money that's about to be poured in from outside industries, dark money that we don't know where it's coming from. And we got to be ready to tell voters what we stand for. And maybe that's the point about last cycle. We can't just run against our opponent. I have to tell you exactly how Jason's voted, and we have to make sure that our constituents know how he's voted against the interest of families in this district. But we also have to tell voters what we stand for and what we're going to fight for.
What will second district voters see differently in you this year? Will they see more of you, or are you going to campaign in a different manner?
Yeah, well, we've already built such an operation that we can stand up on day one post the DFL endorsement. So they're going to see me everywhere. I've already been spending time on hog farms. I've already been spending time in rural areas in greater Minnesota. We are going to be everywhere, and we're going to be in places where I can hear from all different kinds of voters. I'm not going to spend all of my time just talking to people who already agree with me. I've got to find as many independent voters and as many lean Republican voters who I can tell them, this is what I'm going to do to work hard for your family. I'm going to fight for special education funding in this Congress. I have a son who's on the autism spectrum. And so I'm just going to be out there telling them, here's what we're going to fight for.
Is there something different about the campaign this time than there was last time? What were the lessons that you learned in 2016 that you aren't going to repeat?
Well, we had a lot of stuff happening in 2016, right? I mean, one of those was a bit of a Republican wave year that came up on us. But what if I think people need to know more about me. They need to know my full story, where I come from, why I'm so passionate about serving Minnesota families, and that's because I came from a family that didn't have a lot. We had a lot of love, but we didn't have a lot of material stuff growing up, and for me, this is about really making sure that every American has access to what we call the American dream. And I'm going to make sure that they know everything about me. I'm going to bring everything who I am to this race. And at the end of the day, I believe Minnesotans, I believe CD2 is going to choose to make sure that there's a member of Congress who's going to fight for them and their families.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.